I had always thought of myself as a rational person. Skepticism was my armor against the supernatural, the unexplained. The stories my grandmother told me as a child about spirits and dark forces lurking in the shadows of our world, well, they were just that, stories. But last fall, something happened to me that I can't explain, and for the first time in my life, I truly felt fear. It was early November, the time of year when the leaves had all fallen, leaving the trees skeletal, and the world seemed wrapped in a somber chill. I had decided to take a short trip to clear my mind, escape from the suffocating pressures of work. I rented a small cabin in a remote town, far from the noise of the city. The air was crisp and cold, the sky perpetually overcast, and a strange fog had settled around the area, clinging to the ground like a living, breathing entity. The locals warned me. A harmless old wives' tale, I assumed. They said not to wander into the fog after dark. It moves with a purpose, they whispered, faces pale and serious. It calls to you, lures you deeper into the woods. I laughed it off, naturally. What grown adult would believe in ghostly fog? The first few days were uneventful. I spent my time reading, taking long walks, and enjoying the isolation. But then, on the third night, things started to shift. It was late, perhaps around midnight, when I first noticed the sounds. I had been sitting by the fire, lost in a novel, when I heard it. A faint whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind slipping through the cracks in the window frame. But as I listened closer, I realized it wasn't the wind, it was a voice. The whisper was low, almost indiscernible, as though it were carried on the air itself. It seemed to rise and fall, growing louder as the fog outside thickened, curling against the windows like tendrils trying to get inside. I stood, every muscle in my body tense, and moved toward the window. Peering out, I saw nothing but the dense white mist, yet the whisper persisted, insistent and eerie. I closed the curtains, telling myself I was imagining things, but the whisper stayed with me, lingering in the back of my mind, even as I tried to sleep. It wasn't words exactly, just sounds, a mixture of hushed voices, like a conversation happening just out of earshot. The next morning, I tried to shake off the unease, but as the day wore on, I couldn't escape the feeling that something was watching me, hiding just out of sight. By dusk, the fog had rolled in again, thicker than before, and the whispering returned. I thought maybe if I stepped outside, faced whatever it was head on, the fear would dissipate. So I did the one thing I had promised myself I wouldn't do. I ventured into the fog. As soon as I crossed the threshold of the cabin, I was swallowed by the mist. Visibility was practically zero. I couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. The air was thick, heavy, like it was pressing against my skin. And that whisper, no, those whispers, were all around me now, circling me. I called out, half expecting someone to answer, but there was only silence. That, and the whispers growing louder, more frantic. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel cold sweat trickling down my back. Then I heard it, my name, a voice clear as day, spoken just behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there. Panic surged through me. I started walking faster, desperate to get back to the cabin, but every step felt like I was moving deeper into the fog. It was then that I saw it. A figure, shadowy and indistinct, standing just at the edge of my vision. At first it was motionless, but then it began to move toward me, slowly, deliberately. I froze, too terrified to even breathe. The figure grew closer, and as it did I could make out its features, or rather the lack of them. Its face was smooth, featureless, like a mannequin. Yet I could feel its eyes on me, boring into my soul. And the whispering, it wasn't just from the fog anymore. It was coming from the figure, from inside my head, all around me. Louder, more demanding. I stumbled backward, my mind racing, trying to figure out what was happening. Suddenly I heard footsteps, real heavy footsteps running toward me. I turned, expecting to see someone, anyone, but there was nothing. The fog was now so thick I couldn't tell which direction the cabin was in. I was lost. And then the whispers changed. They weren't just sounds anymore, they were words, clear and unmistakable. Join us. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, but I ran as fast as I could. The whispers chased me, the figure followed, and I could feel the fog closing in, suffocating me. My legs ached, my lungs burned, but I didn't stop. Not until I saw the faint outline of the cabin through the mist. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me. The whispers stopped, and the fog, as if it had been commanded, began to recede. I collapsed onto the floor, shaking, gasping for air. I didn't sleep that night, I couldn't. The next morning, I packed my things and left without looking back. I don't know what it was that I encountered in that fog. I don't know if it was a ghost, a spirit, or something else entirely, but one thing is certain. The whispers, the figure, they were real. And even now, back in the safety of my home, I sometimes hear them, faint but unmistakable, whispering my name. If you've ever encountered something strange, something you can't explain, maybe you're not alone. Maybe the fog whispers to you too.